And with the world grappling with how to get back to COVID normal after being in COVID-19 and lockdown and all the rest of it, now is the time to enter a place. Greater emphasis on well-being practices. People across the board want their well-being not only to be considered but prioritised, and they are taking action on this like never before, which is why I'm here to introduce my guest for today, Flic Manning from Authentic. Welcome to you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very well, I imagine, because that's the centre of your the work you do. Let's talk a bit about how well-being needs to be sustainable in order to work. I know I'm guilty of getting really excited about getting healthy, going on a juice cleanse, going for a run, and I do it for like a week, and I burn out, and I resent it, and I don't do it again.
This is a pretty typical story when it comes to anything well-being focused, and that's because we generally don't make it sustainable. We haven't been taught what that actually means and how to do that for ourselves. So sustainability when it comes to well-being is all about actually making it something that fits genuinely into your lifestyle. So doesn't mean about having your fancy activewear or a shrine room to do your meditation in, or whatever brand you're following or what the Kardashians are doing. It's about actually fitting things into your life. So it's got to be stuff that's doesn't have obstacles and no hurdles. It's got to be, accessible for you. Shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg. Stuff that's going to fit into your day-to-day. Things like breathing techniques, for example. They're free. They go with you everywhere. You can do them for mental well-being, physical well-being. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about with sustainable self-care.
Definitely guilty of spending some money on some activewear, but we won't talk about that. Let's touch on a little bit why well-being is equally important, I suppose, at home as it is in the workplace. I suppose you head home seeking refuge, but a lot of us can't switch off.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really fair point. And again, this is why personally I think we've kind of got it all backwards. We're so focused on working hard and sort of that being our measure of success in life, and ultimately actually having well-being and a quality of life. Those are the measures of success we should actually have. So we need to actually bring those things with us everywhere we go, because we have 4 human drivers. They're safe, seen, valued and heard. And they need to be met at home and at the workplace. So it's not enough for us to just segregate it to one spot. Our body goes with us everywhere we go, so our well-being has to go with us too.
I love that. I think that's a very clever sort of outline you've done there. Any tips for when we go home? I need some tips for when I'm at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So some really simple things to get you started is actually sort of to come off your social media for about 15 minutes when you walk in the door. They trigger dopamine, which is just going to make you go up, followed by an immediate crash. That's going to make you want to do it again and again. And before you know it, you've scrolled and scrolled and scrolled for 3 hours and you're wired and you can't come down. So actually giving yourself a little bit of a break, having a glass of water, maybe spending 5 minutes actually just breathing, doing something that you like, reading a book, maybe just actually having a nice long shower. Anything that's just about actually treating your body with kindness and compassion and love. That's the starting point.
And withdrawing from all of that constant engagement that we have in our pockets all the time. So all people are deserving of wellness. Let's talk a little bit about that. It shouldn't just be for those with disabilities or existing conditions. You want to break that down for me a little bit more?
Actually, so what I'm suggesting is that we need to be inclusive of people with chronic illnesses, disabilities and conditions. So what we've sort of seen across the board really up until COVID-19 was that the needs of people like that were really completely dismissed. People were screaming out for work from home and flexible, working options and accessibility, and denied over and over again, leaving a lot of people unable to even enter the workforce in the first place. So what we need to do is make sure that now, as we're moving into a world where we have to accept that COVID is part and parcel of our day-to-day life, that we don't remove those kinds of things, work from home, flexible working options, accessibility. Make sure that they stay in the workplace, and make sure that our employers and government are investing in wellbeing skills like breathing techniques, making sure we actually have our wellbeing needs met, rather than just sort of saying, you need to figure that out after 5 p.m.
Yeah, not my problem, off you trot.
Yep.
So that's something I've definitely heard and seen businesses doing more and more of. Have you seen examples of this kind of thing, this integration of workplaces actually putting this stuff first?
Yeah, we're starting to see a bit more of it now, and what's I think probably interesting is each business and industry is driven by its own needs for adaptation and change, but one of the common things that seems to be discussed at the moment is this idea of people resigning because they are no longer, getting the wellbeing needs that they are requesting, and that's been highlighted during COVID-19. So there are workplaces that are trying to hire people and are unable to because they're actually not offering work from home or flexible working options. So it's those companies that are offering those kinds of things and really focusing on the fact that it's human beings that build their businesses. They're the ones
Human
that will win.
beings, not machines.
Yes, exactly.
Let's talk a bit about how self-care changes lives on a cellular level, I believe. It changes your community and it changes the workplace, which we've touched on. But take us through some of the things you found within the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a lot of work with people with chronic illnesses and disabilities. I am in that category myself. And so one thing that I've definitely observed and studied is the impact of what's happening with our nervous system. So when we're in fight or flight mode, or essentially we're stressed out all the time, which is largely what we are most of the day, we are pumping adrenaline and cortisol and effectively disabling our immune system and disabling our ability to function properly. And our brain only learns what's reinforced most. Whatever's reinforced most wins. So it learns to adapt to whatever we give it. So if we're telling it it's stressed out all the time, that's how it's going to function. Therefore, our body adapts to that, including right down to our very cells that make up our body. So by changing some of our techniques and focusing on well-being, we have the option to change what's happening in our nervous systems, retrain our brain, and then prime our body for a different way of living.
That was an incredible rundown. Are you talking about like cognitive brain therapy kind of thing? Like literally rewiring and growing new ways to think, feel, believe about yourself?
Essentially, it's a technique called neuroplasticity. So it's about how the brain wires and talks to itself and then how that communicates out to the body. So again, I just try to remind people that whatever is reinforced most wins. So at home, whatever is reinforced most wins. So ultimately, we can change that. So if we, over time, we develop new ways of talking to ourselves and communicating with our bodies with kindness and compassion, we change the way that the body can actually function and withstand stress and unpredictability, which is just a part of life.
Perfect. Flic Manning, thank you so much for joining us on the program and unpacking a little bit more about all of this. I know I have benefited from our discussion. I'll be reflecting on it long after we've chatted. So thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.